Good morning, parents. I know this is rather unusual. I'm sitting here all by myself at the table. Normally, there is a battery of teachers alongside me, but I do have Vishal sir sitting in front of me, helping me out. I'm here to discuss something important with you. Now, you have all heard of the National Education Policy, or more simply put, the NEP, and we have a beautiful slide up there. Yes, it did create quite a stir of excitement among parents, students, stakeholders, teachers, and educationalists when we first heard of it sometime last year. The NEP 2020, which was unveiled on the 29th of July, is a very exhaustive and comprehensive document on education reforms that the government has rolled out. A long-awaited welcome. 34 years to be precise in the making. In this recording, I'm going to take you through briefly, simplifying the document as best I can, and demystifying why the government felt the need to overhaul the existing education system. On the very onset, I would like to say that this document is an excellent one, and if schools, in all honesty, put into practice even half of the directives that this policy espouses, it will benefit students tremendously and bring in a sea of change into the education system. Now, parents, why and what is education? And education is fundamental for achieving full potential and developing an equitable and just society and promoting national development. India will have the highest population of young people in the world over the next decade, and it is the government's endeavor to provide high-quality educational opportunities for developing and maximizing our country's rich talents and resources, which will benefit the individual, society, and will determine the future of our country. The world as we know it today is undergoing rapid changes. And these rapid changes are taking place in the knowledge landscape, with various dramatic scientific and technological advances, such as rise in data, machine learning, artificial intelligence. Many unskilled jobs worldwide will be taken over by machines, while the need for a skilled workforce, particularly involving mathematics, computer science, social sciences, and humanities, will increase in greater demand. With climate change, increasing pollution, and depleting natural resources, there will be a sizable shift in how we meet the world's energy, water, food, and sanitation needs, again resulting in the need for new skilled labor, particularly in biology, chemistry, physics, agriculture, climate science, and social science. The growing emergence of epidemics and pandemics will also call for collaborative research in infectious disease management and development of vaccines, and the resultant social issues heightens the need for multidisciplinary learning. There will be a growing demand for humanities and art as India moves towards becoming a developed country as well as among the three largest economies in the world. Hence, education must move towards less content and towards learning how to think critically, solve problems, how to be creative and multidisciplinary, how to innovate, adapt, and absorb new material in novel and changing fields. The purpose of the education system should therefore be to develop good human beings capable of rational thought and action, possessing compassion and empathy, courage and resilience, scientific temper, and creative imagination with sound ethical moorings and values. It should aim at producing engaged, productive, and contributing citizens for building an equitable, inclusive, and plural society as envisaged by our Constitution. So may I have the first slide, please, on the principles. I am now going to run you through the key principles of this national education policy. The first is unique capabilities. When we recognize the uniqueness that each child has. Each child is unique and an individual in or her own right. Equity and inclusion. Equity here, parents, means fairness, and inclusion means education is for everyone. Like I said right in the beginning, it's a fundamental right of every child. Respect for diversity and local context. We're a very large country made up of a lot of people. Our languages are different. Diversity in our languages, diversity in the way we live. Our thinking is diverse. And therefore, the curriculum that we are going to put out for the children to study should take into consideration this diversity that our country has. Use of technology. This entire year, that's exactly what we have done. Teachers have reinvented themselves. Technology is going to play a very, very, very big role. While I was reading this document, and I have been reading it for a couple of weeks, because like I said in the beginning, it is exhaustive and yet very, very comprehensive. Now, when I look at technology, and sometimes when I'm taking class and I see children traveling and yet attending class, that is the use of technology. Long distance learning is another thing that the NEP is looking at. Children in villages, through satellite, they can study. As long as they have a device, they don't have to be physically present in a classroom. Multidisciplinary. No subject can be taught in isolation. And I have this example to share with you parents. I taught the children about Curricular. Now I'm an English teacher. The lesson in the book was about nature. And Probably I taught them a little bit about biology when I showed them the cake cut. I taught them a little bit about science. So this becomes interdisciplinary. Yesterday, while I was teaching Standard 6, Social Studies, we were talking about rainfall, the climate in India, rainfall. And I had to teach them a little bit about precipitation, which is science. This becomes interdisciplinary. Multilingual. Now, definitely, parents, children will be able to grasp better if they are taught in their mother tongue, in the local native language. So now the medium of instruction is going to shift. We are an English medium school, but we will be using vernacular words. We will be using Marathi, and I have been doing English is a little difficult for children to understand, and very often I give them and supply them with the Hindi equivalent or the Marathi equivalent of the word. And I can literally see the penny drop and the understanding become clear. Critical thinking and creativity. Now, very often after a lesson, we have the question and answers and we have all that. But now we are going to shift this question and answers into a more critical thinking. And very recently, in Standard 10, I did a lesson, a very simple lesson. And then I threw out a question to the children, and they had to critically apply themselves. So this is going to be a huge change in the new education system. Emphasize conceptual understanding. So no rote learning, no memorization at all. Of course, certain definitions in science will have to be memorized, but I can't help but think about that movie, Three Idiots, and where one of the students rattles off verbatim the definition, not really understanding a word of what he said, and yet he knows it fact. And then, of course, we have Amir Khan, who says the same thing in a much simpler way. So therefore, conceptual understanding. Ethics and integrity, values. Really speaking, these values should be taught at home. But yes, in school, the first thing we tell children is, have you done your homework? Don't make excuses, just stand up and say, I'm sorry, I haven't. Teachers, in their mark, have to show integrity. So ethics and integrity is something, again, that this document lays a lot of stress on. Community participation, philanthropy, to give to the poor, and not on certain specific days like a birthday or celebrating a death anniversary, but genuine outpouring. And I can't help but share this with you. Just now in the US of A, large parts of the US of A were plunged into darkness. The national grid went for a toss. Texas in particular was plunged into darkness, and the cold has been something frightful. And people without electricity at home. And here when we're talking about electricity, not necessarily just lights, but warmth, the heaters. And there was this gentleman who owns 3 huge furniture stores. I'm sorry, I don't quite recall his name. And he threw open his stores. Now, in America, when we talk about a store, we are talking about 3 or 4 football fields that large. He threw open his doors and allowed people to come in because he had lights and warmth. That kind of philanthropy, community participation, do we give back to our communities? For example, I know a lot of doctors who keep, in another, who keep one day, especially for poor people, free of cost, they treat them. A lot of our doctors go to villages. That kind of community outpouring to give back to the community. This education system is now going to teach us life skills. How to navigate. You've got the marks, you've got everything. But life is something very, very different. Very different. So life skills like vocational training. What is the sense of getting a degree and then not getting a job? So life skills will be vocational training. We are all used to summative assessment and examinations, the annual examination at the end of the year. Now the focus is going to be on formative assessment. How does your child, the student, perform throughout the year is what we are going to be looking at, not necessarily the year end. And I think this is something that we were already doing with the CCE. Summative no longer is as important as formative. Piecemeal changes can be made, deficiencies and weaknesses can be corrected, and that way the graph of progress slowly moves upwards. Once a final examination is done and over with, there's really very little you can do. But formative, you can keep bringing in correction, encouragement, looking at areas where the child is finding difficulty, improve on that, and move forward. Teachers are at the heart of all of this. Teachers are going to be empowered, and they are going to be the main core of this education system. There will be a continuous review. Certain people in the ministry are going to continuously research and keep schools, teachers, students updated. Educational experts will be on the job 24/7. There is no longer going to be this 34-year gap. Changes will continue to come slowly, and we will keep reinventing ourselves, therefore, to fit into the world, global world, so to speak. I'm sorry, parents, there's so much I've got written down. It'll take me a little time to find my pages. Therefore, education must build character, enable learners to be ethical, rational, compassionate, while at the same time prepare them for a gainful, fulfilling employment. Now, the education policy lays particular emphasis on the development of the creative potential of each student. The education policy is based on the principle that education must develop not only cognitive capabilities, both the foundation capacities of literacy and numeracy and higher order cognitive capacities, such as critical thinking and problem solving, but also social, ethical, and emotional capacities and dispositions. Now, parents, when you come across words like cognitive, I just read that this education policy will develop cognitive capabilities. Now, what do we mean by cognitive? Cognitive means the process of gaining knowledge through your intelligence, through your thoughts, through your experiences, through your senses. That is called cognitive. And as we progress, we will talk about this again in the foundation stage. How important is this cognitive development? So I'm going to read over it again now that I've explained to you what is cognitive capabilities. The education policy is based on the principle that education must develop not only cognitive capabilities, both the foundational capacities of literacy and numeracy and higher order cognitive capacities such as critical thinking and problem solving, but also social, ethical, and emotional capacities and dispositions. Now we come to the vision. This national education policy envisions an education system rooted in Indian ethos that contributes directly to transforming India, that is, Bharat, sustainably into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing high quality education to all. Let me further explain this vision. The vision of the policy is to instill among the learners a deep-rooted pride in being Indian, not only in thought, but also spirit, intellect, and deeds, as well as to develop knowledge, skills, values, and dispositions that support responsible commitment to human rights, sustainable development and living, and global wealth, thereby reflecting a truly global citizen. Parents, now we are going to talk about school education, something that is going to concern you and must have been your concern. That what are the changes or what are the modifications that the government has brought about in school education. Now, before we begin, I would like to explain two keywords that are going to keep popping up. So it's important that you understand these two keywords and then we will move forward. The first is curriculum. Now, what do we understand by curriculum? The subjects that we teach that make up a course of study. When I started teaching in St. Michael's, and I was the English teacher, I realized that there was a gap in how I was to teach English if I wanted it to be effective, if I wanted children to be fluent, articulate, and the loophole or the missing link that I found was grammar. Now, every lesson does have a little smattering of grammar at the back, but I intentionally separated it and started teaching it as a separate subject altogether. A part of English, of course, but separate, giving it a lot of emphasis. And all I can say is, because at that time, There was a lot of criticism, but why not? Because it was something new and nobody else was doing it. But how can you teach a language if you're not going to teach the rudiments of how it works, how it functions, the rules, so to speak? And therefore, grammar, I felt, was necessary. Again, in curriculum, talking about my subject, English that I teach, reading. Reading is important. To be well informed, of course, to be fluent, of course, and imagination. Reading fires up your imagination. Word vocabulary increases. Look at Shashi Tharoor. A perfect example of reading. I believe when he was sick, or when for one of his birthdays, his father presented him a dictionary. And he read the dictionary, and that is why he has so many words at his disposal. A very articulate man. And so that is curriculum. Subjects that are taught that make up a course of study. And then we have something called pedagogy. Pedagogy is the method and practices that a teacher employs to teach her subject. Pedagogy. Now, the existing 10+2 structure in school education will be modified with the new pedagogical and curricular reconstructing of 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, covering ages 3 to 18. This means the first 5 years of school will comprise of the foundation stage. First 5 years, we're looking at nursery, lower KG, upper KG, class 1 and class 2. 5 years. The next 3 years will be divided into preparatory stage from classes 3 to 5. Later, there will be 3 years of middle stage, classes 6 to 8, and 4 years of secondary stage, classes 9 to 12. So in all, you have 5 years of foundation, 3 of preparatory, 3 of middle, and 4 of secondary. So that's the first big change that has come about. Now what you see on your screens, transforming curricular and pedagogical structure. So there you have on the left-hand side, the previous academic structure, which we were used to, we were familiar with, which was 10+2. And what you see at the bottom, the box at the bottom, that has the zebra lines, that was what we called nursery, lower KG and upper KG. And it's been illustrated very beautifully. That box is separate from the rest of the box. It's been colored also differently. Here, there was a big gap. And if you look at the right-hand side chart that they have put for you, foundational courses, 5 years, 3 years of nursery, lower and upper KG has been merged with classes 1 and 2. And that has become the foundational stage. Very, very important. We talked about cognitive, and we will talk about it as we go further. How important these 5 years of schooling are. How very, very important for a child, for a student. Then we have the preparatory stage, which is 3 years, and classes 3 to 5, ages 8 to 11. Then we have the middle stage, 3 years again for classes 6 to 8, ages 11 to 14. And then we have the secondary stage, that is 4 years, classes 9 to 12, ages 14 to 18. Also, parents, if you can just look at the word Anganwadi. So there is a shift. We're not going to call it kindergarten anymore. Indian ethos, what we talked about right at the very beginning, preschool is going to now be called Anganwadi, which is your lower nursery, lower KG, and upper KG. Now, parents, whatever you saw on that chart, depicted, illustrated on that chart, I'm going to run you through it very, very slowly and carefully, explaining to you how the curriculum and the pedagogy has changed. So, curriculum and pedagogy in school. School education will be guided by a 5+3+3+4 design, consisting of the foundational stage in two parts, that is, 3 years of Anganwadi or preschool, plus 2 years in primary school, that is grades 1 and 2, both together covering ages 3 to 8. The preparatory stage, grades 3 to 5, covering ages 8 to 11, middle stage, grades 6 to 8, covering ages 11 to 14, and the secondary stage, grades 9 to 12 in two phases, that is 9 and 10 in the first, and 11 and 12 in the second, covering ages 14 to 18. Now, parents, I would like you to look at the ages. And if you can recall what we saw in the previous, I will just go back one and come back to the chart. Right at the bottom where you see 3 years of the foundational stage, which is 3+3. I'm looking at the 3, the Anganwadi preschool. 3 to 6. That means when you come to standard 1, you should be 6 years old. And I am so relieved and happy that this has come as a policy, as a reform, as a change. When I started St. Michael's, we did not have an Anganwadi, we did not have nursery, lower KG, upper KG. We didn't have a kindergarten. We started with class 1. And I had so many parents who argued with me that why am I not admitting their child? Because the rule of the school was the child had to be 6 years of age. And this is very, very important. Very, very important in your development, mental development. And here it is as clear as daylight, where age 6 in standard 1. We're going to move forward. Now, like I said, the foundational stage is very, very important, which here is called Early Childhood Care and Education, ECCE, the foundation of learning. It has been noticed that 85% of a child's cumulative brain development occurs prior to the age of 6, indicating the critical importance of appropriate care and stimulation of the brain in earlier years in order to ensure healthy brain development and growth. This is not just an observation. This is scientifically proved that the first 6 years of a child's growth is crucial. Crucial brain development takes place here. And there you have the foundational stage consisting of 5 years of flexible, multi-level, play, activity-based learning. So this is where the curriculum and the pedagogy is going to change. ECCE ideally consists of flexible, multifaceted, multi-level, play-based, activity-based, and inquiry-based learning comprising of alphabets, languages, numbers, counting, colors, shapes, indoor and outdoor play, puzzles and logical thinking, problem solving, drawing, painting, and other visual art, craft, drama, and puppetry, music, and movement. It also includes a focus on developing social capacities, sensitivity, good behavior, courtesy, ethics, personal and public cleanliness, teamwork, and cooperation. The overall aim of ECCE will be to attain optimal outcomes in the domains of physical and motor development, cognitive development, socio-emotional, ethical development, cultural, artistic development, and the development of communication and early language, literacy, and numeracy. Parents, on a lighter note, because this is quite a bit I threw at you, on a lighter note, when we talk about good behavior, courtesy, ethics, art, drama, singing, all of this, always I notice people say, "Chota hai, bade hoke seekh jaye, bade hoke seekh jaye." Please remember the foundation of learning, of all this learning, problem solving, languages, alphabets, counting, numbers, shapes, puppetry, music, all of this takes place the first 6 months. And of course, the pedagogy, the practices, the methodology that will be used will be in this play-way method. Look at the songbook we have. How many beautiful things are your children learning? Good behavior, how to be kind, how to appreciate, how to observe. So through music, through drama, through artwork, children are going to learn and their brain is going to develop. So the early childhood care and education, ECCE, the government is laying a lot of stress and emphasis on this foundational stage. You have to bear it with parents. It takes a little while for it to pop up on my screen. Now here we come to the curriculum and the pedagogy in school. Once again, I'm going to run you by those 2 words. Curriculum, the subjects that make up a course of study. I gave you the example of teaching English and how I felt the necessity to add grammar and to concentrate on reading and reading comprehension. And parents, I did a little bit of an experiment this time in Standard 9. Yes, as teachers, we do understand it's been a tough year for children. Very, very tough. And I knew Standard 9 wasn't going to do well, for whatever the reasons are. And yet we have to have these tests and these examinations. And so when I set the question paper, I hedged it. 32 marks written, 8 marks for reading. And it was just not reading. I notched it up a little bit, which is after they read the passage, and the passage was a story in itself, a complete, it was not an extract or not just a few lines that made no sense, it was an entire story of a page that they read out. And then I asked them questions. What did they understand of what they read? And I noticed that they are able to identify the words, definitely, but they don't understand the meaning behind the words, the meaning behind the sentences. Recognition of words is there, but they don't understand the meaning. Comprehension is missing. So here we are with curriculum and pedagogy. The method that I employed and the reading that I think is very, very necessary for my subject, English, and for all languages for that matter. The preparatory stage, now we finished with the foundational, we are moving to the preparatory stage, will comprise 3 years of education building on the play, discovery, and activity-based pedagogical and curricular style of the foundational stage. So again, playway, sing-song, activities, projects, all of that will help in their learning, in their understanding of their subject. And we'll also begin to incorporate some light textbooks as well as aspects of more formal but interactive classroom learning in order to lay a solid groundwork across subjects, including reading, writing, speaking, physical education, art, languages, science, and mathematics. Now, for those parents whose children went into standard 4, I remember last year, playway method, we asked them to make a globe on their own. In school, they brought the balloon with papier mâché. They stuck all that paper around the balloon, let it dry, burst the balloon, took it out, they painted it, and so much of learning happened. So just like in the foundational stage, it will carry forward into the preparatory stage, but of course, we will notch it up slightly more, just a little more. Very much like what Arpana ma'am is doing in a project just now. The children of standard 3 and 4 have to research their work about how can they save the earth. How can they live a more sustainable life to protect this earth? Then we have the curriculum and pedagogy in the middle stage. The middle stage will comprise 3 years of education building on the pedagogical and curricular style of the preparatory stage, but with the introduction of subject teachers for learning and discussion of, for learning, I beg your pardon, for learning and discussion of abstract concept in each subject, that is science, mathematics, arts, social science, and humanities. So although there is a seamless moving from one stage to the other, the level is notched up a little. Now formal subjects are coming. In the previous preparatory, light study material was being given to them. Emphasis more was on reading and writing skills, and now we are notching it up just that much more. Experiential learning and explorations of relations among different subjects will be encouraged and emphasized. Experiential learning, experiencing it yourself. Simply put, experiencing it yourself, either by touching it, either by watching something and coming to an answer on your own, visiting a place, all of that is experiential learning. And interdisciplinary is what we call exploring relations among different subjects, which will be encouraged and emphasize. For example, I do recall either in standard 4, it is standard 4, there was a lesson in English which Santa ma'am was teaching about a lamb that had gone out, and the palace guard goes around asking for some coal to rekindle that fire, because the palace was very, very cold, and the king had commanded his palace guard to go and look. So interdisciplinary here would be, why did the fire go out? So in science we learn fire needs oxygen, it needs something to help the fire catch, something combustible. Why does it go off? Why does it die down? Because either lack of oxygen or the material that we are using, the combustible material that we are using, is over and finished. So here science comes into play. So different subjects, exploration of relations among different subjects will be encouraged and emphasized. The secondary stage, so we're looking at classes 6, 7, 8, will comprise, I beg your pardon, the secondary stage, the middle was standard 6, 7, 8. Now we're looking at the secondary stage, that is 9, 10, 11, and 12. The secondary stage will comprise of 4 years of multidisciplinary study, building on the subject-oriented, pedagogical, and curricular style of the middle stage. So again, a seamless walk into the next stage. And parents, I don't know how many of you have noticed, in math, there is a big jump. I know for a fact that Sandhya ma'am has always complained, and so has Surekha ma'am complained, that one of the classes, I'm not very sure, I could be wrong, from the 7th to the 8th, there was no middle level. Suddenly the children were thrown into a much higher level of math. Now this was the old order. That is why I'm saying here it is a seamless moving into the next stage. Multidisciplinary study, building on the subject-oriented, pedagogical, and curricular style of the middle stage, but with greater depth. So as I say, notch it up. The level goes up a little bit. Greater critical thinking, greater attention to life aspirations, and greater flexibility and student choice of subjects. Now, I'm very sorry, this always amuses me in the last couple of days, every time I've been reading this choice of subjects. And we are going to talk about flexibility. I'm so glad this has come about. I've noticed that for the longest time, parents force their children into taking science because they just naturally assume that taking science is a higher order of studies. Well, that's far from correct. And besides which, what about your child's choice? His interest, his passion, where does that lie? That is completely negated. So a quick look at all that we did. Here it is for you briefly. The foundational stage, 5 years, multi-level, play, activity-based learning. Preparatory stage, 3 years, classes 3 to 5, play, discovery, activity-based. Middle stage, 3 years, classes 6 to 8, ages 11 to 14, experiential learning. I just took standard 6 to show them the well the other day. They had no idea what a well, the inside of a well looks like. And actually I was teaching them history, I beg your pardon, geography. And we again came to water, rainwater, groundwater. And They have it memorized by heart, rote learning the structure of the soil. But they really don't understand. The conceptual understanding is missing. What we did right in the very beginning, the key principles. And so I walked them to the well and showed them there. So experiential learning. And then, of course, we have the secondary stage, 4 years. Everybody likes to think these are the most important years. So the top has come to the bottom now. Foundational learning is more important. The foundational stage is far, far more important. Here it's very much like a house. Your foundation is good, strong, you build well on top of it. So the secondary stage, 4 years, classes 9, 10, 11, 12, split into 2, 9, and 10, and then 11 and 12, ages 14 to 18, and here, greater critical thinking, multidisciplinary study, flexibility in choosing subjects. We're going to move on. Key features of pedagogy. What are the practices? What are the methods that a teacher will use? So there you have it on your screen. Competency-based education. I don't like math. Why do I have to take course A of it? I have to do some. Can I take course B? Competencies. Do I have it? Integration of subjects. Development of scientific temper. No SILOS among subjects and learning. Emphasis on digital literacy. Promotion of multilingual teaching. Now, a teacher is going to employ all of this. But in short, I am going to explain something to you that pedagogy must evolve to make education more experiential, holistic, integrated, inquiry-driven, learner-centered, discussion-based, flexible, and most important, enjoyable. When Veena ma'am and I had been to Nerul year before last, as heads of the school, we had attended a 2-day seminar meeting with one of the heads of the CBS, and I remember he kept using the word joyful. Please, he said, teachers, principal, heads of school, make learning a joyful experience. And I could not agree with him more. Unfortunately, the previous system of education was not about joyful learning. It was not about knowledge gained that empowers you. It was just about cramming, learning by heart, getting marks, stress, pressure, examinations. You have to crack them, land up with an excellent job, and probably drop dead at 40 with a heart attack. That's a little extreme, but nonetheless, that is very much what our education system is about. The earlier one. So therefore, in a nutshell, the curriculum must include basic arts, crafts, humanities, games, sports, fitness, languages, literature, culture, values. And this is in addition to science, mathematics, developing all aspects and capabilities of learners. Education has to be made more well-rounded, useful, and fulfilling, and that is exactly what this new education policy is striving to do. Well-rounded, useful, and fulfilling. The curriculum content to make space for critical thinking, more holistic, inquiry-based, discovery-based, discussion-based, analyze-based learning. The mandated content will focus on key concepts, ideas, applications, and problem solving. Teaching and learning will be conducted in a more interactive manner. Questions will be encouraged, and classroom sessions will contain more fun, be creative, collaborative, and exploratory activities for students will be put together for a deeper and more experiential learning. Now, parents, when we talk about collaborative, very recently we had a farmer's exhibition, a photographic exhibition. Now that was collaborative. The social studies teacher, Ion sir, myself, the English teacher, the science teacher, we collaborated together. Science teachers flew light. As an English teacher, I give you the entire picture of what I wanted, fluently, articulate, train the children to speak well, multidisciplinary. We had the Hindi subject teachers and the Marathi subject teachers train the children in speaking, and I also spent an entire afternoon talking about farm laws. In science, we talked about crop rotation. What do we grow now? What crops? What kind of soil? All of that. So 3 teachers collaborate together. And here, parents, again, I'd like to look back. I'd like to look back at your progress cards that we would give to your children at the end of the year. Thinking skills, emotional skills, all of those parameters. He enjoys reading, she enjoys reading, very gentle, courteous child, a very curious child, asks lots of questions, relevant questions, all that the teachers used to exhaustively, minute, put together a little performer of your child was always overlooked. That was never discussed with the teacher, always only the marks. मैम इसको यहाँ 2 marks कैसे कम मिले? मैम बहुत गंदा किया है, पीछे देखो इतना अच्छा किया, यूनिट 1 में, यूनिट 2 में अच्छा किया, यूनिट 3 में बच्चा नीचे चला गया. Marks were important, but not what the teacher had written about your child. How does your child apply himself? How does he look and view his studies? Is he interested? And how does he go about learning? Is he a slow learner? Is he a quick learner? Is he able to grasp things quickly? And mind you, every time we said the child takes a little time, straight for tuitions. One of the biggest things that, again, I'm very happy about, and I'm going to talk about this at the end, is coaching classes and tuition classes are going to be discontinued. Cracking an examination is not learning, and that is what all coaching classes are doing. How to crack NEET, how to crack JEE, and from day one, from the day of St. Michael's inception, I have said no to tuitions. Please do not send your children for tuition. Send them out to play instead. Now, hopefully, you will listen because it's all there as directives of the board. There you are. Parents, Vishal sir has done an excellent job to train. How everything is connected and how everything once connected moves forward seamlessly. One thing leads to the other. So the core essentials in this curriculum is going to be critical thinking. So the focus on inquiry, discovery, discussion, analysis-based teaching, and learning methods for holistic, all-round education. Holistic, all interactive classes. Talk to the teacher. Bring things. It's not going to be one way, only the teacher teaching. Dependency on textbooks learning is going to be done away with. So much more is going to be brought in. Questions that the children want to ask is going to be encouraged and promoted. Experiential learning is always such fun, creative, but here also I have to tell you parents that every time we ask for a project, why do parents make the project? You think I as a teacher can't tell that your child has not made it and you have? And therefore you feel that since it is so professionally done, why hasn't my child got marks? But you see, as a teacher, I know your child hasn't done it. You have done it. So, when a child does it on his own, the learning is so much more impactful. Please remember. Don't worry that it doesn't look shop-made, professional. No, that's not what we want. That is a skill that if you keep doing it, you will get to becoming a master. So, fun, creative, collaborative, exploratory activities in classrooms for experiential learning and deeper student learning. So just now, the exploratory activities. We are having in my social studies class a lot of fun with atlas. So much of fun with the atlas. Children are exploring themselves and coming up with things, and then I'm just explaining it to them. So a deeper learning is therefore taking place. Flexibility in course choices. There is going to be an increased flexibility and choice of subjects to study. Parents, but I have to caution you here, that also depends on availability of teachers. We recently had a parent who came and said, don't you offer Sanskrit? And I said, I'm so sorry, no. He said, why? I said, we'll never be able to find a teacher. Well, actually, that's not true. Mrs. Bhavna Vaikar was our first Sanskrit teacher, but somehow children did not show any interest. So for the longest time, she would come to school, but she had no students to teach because we were also offering Marathi. In secondary school, physical education, the arts and crafts, and vocational skills will be course choices that the children can make. There will be no hard separation among curricular, extracurricular, or co-curricular among arts, humanities, and sciences, or between vocational or academic streams. Now, parents try and understand this, that children can choose mathematics and music. We are habituated to looking at mathematics always goes with the science subject, chemistry, physics, biology. But no. I can be a student of humanities, that I can do political science, I can do geography, history, and I can take also psychology, and I can take physiology. That is probably if I want to be um, grow up and be a manager of a cricket team to look after their injuries, physiology. I could be a midwife. So flexibility of subjects, nothing now is streamlined, rigid. Subjects such as physical education, the arts and crafts, and vocational skills, in addition to science, humanities, and mathematics, will be incorporated throughout the school curriculum. Now, vocational skills, if I want to become an electrician, a carpenter, a plumber, a librarian, if I want to become a banker, if I want to go for tours and travels, work in an airline, if I want to do dress design, these become vocational skills. If I want to do, and we have been doing it in our school, artificial intelligence, workshops of artificial intelligence. So these become vocational skills. And yes, there will be a period set aside for it, 15 hours or some such thing you have to clock to be able to sit for a small little test examination. And this will be incorporated throughout the school curriculum. Now, please understand, parents, all this depends on availability of teachers. That is very, very important, and that is why I said teachers are at the heart, the key principles of life. Now, very interesting, the medium of instruction, multilingualism, and the power of language. The medium of instruction up to grade 5 and preferably till grade 8 and beyond will be the home language, mother tongue, local language. Now, parents, please understand, this does not mean that suddenly St. Michael's will be Hindi speaking and Marathi speaking, or which other language, Marwari speaking, Gujarati speaking, Punjabi speaking, no. But English being the medium of instruction, teachers can teach a little bit in the native language. They can use vernacular, colloquial words, which I do very often in my teaching, because I do realize it's very, very difficult for them to understand. Very, very difficult for them to understand and arrive at that understanding, unless I give it to them in Hindi or Marathi. And then they are able to understand. And in Standard 9, we had this, there was a lesson, a story of how this man lands his plane very safely. He was in trouble, distress, his controls had blanked out, he had lost touch with the tar, and then another plane comes along and helps him land. And the story goes on to say that he went up to the tar control to ask who was that pilot he would like to thank him. And the official said that there was no other plane in the sky at that time. And he said, how can that, this man is very, very perplexed. But there was, he said, he helped me land. And they said no. So of course I threw out the question to the children and I said, who do you think it could be? So like all children, they said a ghost. All right, I gave them an English word. Do you think he was hallucinating? So we looked up that word. And then I said, what about your, I'm sorry, I'll have to ask Vishal sir's help. Sir, ancestors, Purvaja. Purvaja. Your ancestors who are passed on before, do you think they were looking after you, a nana, nani, a dada, dadi, who have died and passed on? Are they watching over you, protecting you? And then I brought it into Shraddha, the month of Shraddha, where we remember our ancestors, people who have gone before us. I brought in Thailand and said many homes in Thailand worship their ancestors. They have a small little shrine outside. The Christian world has the 2nd of November dedicated to loved ones who have passed away. So I can use native language, but I'm not going to start suddenly teaching English in Marathi or Hindi. I think I will make a complete mess of it in that case. And besides which, if we are going to make global citizens, then I think English is important, necessary. Curricular integration of essential subjects, skills, and capacities. Every student will take a fun course during grades 6 to 8 that gives a survey and hands-on experience of a sample of important vocational crafts such as carpentry, electric work, metal work, gardening, pottery making, etc. Parents, gardening, pottery making. I remember when we moved into the new school, there was so much of land that had to be cleared, not of building debris, but stones. And I remember getting the children to work. There's so many of them, so it goes very quickly. 2, children love it. Children love responsibility. It makes them feel important. 3, it's a bond. It's your school. Dignity of labor, all of those things. But I remember after making them pick up stones, pebbles, not rocks. I had a parent write me a letter and tell me that I shouldn't do these kind of things because her child, this lady wrote, had come back home with a back that was aching and paining because of the big boulders and rocks she was picking up. No, that's not true. So gardening, definitely, they can poke themselves, prick themselves, ruin their clothes, get hurt. But that's part of growing up. So something wonderful. I hope we can put this into place. We're working very hard towards this. I hope we can find like-minded people to come in twice a week to have these fun courses in school. All students will participate in a 10-day bagless period sometime during grade 6 and 8, where they intern with local vocational experts such as carpenters, gardeners, potters, artists, etc. Definitely, I will need your permission for this because if children get hurt, if they are going out of school, then we need your consent. But to intern, to apprentice, to understand how this works. Now, let's look at a carpenter. Other than a saw and a hammer, what other tools do children know of? So just the identification of tools that a carpenter uses. Similarly, a gardener, soil. We are already doing composting in our school in a very, very good way. Thanks to local land, that legacy we are continuing. Potters, artists, let us see where it goes. But definitely, after the farmers' exhibition that we had at NEP, one of the farmers has promised that he would come to school anytime we call him, and he will, for a week, spend time teaching children about agriculture. And of course, that will be in Marathi. Bilingual. Children will be given periodic exposure to activities outside school through visits to places, monuments of historical, cultural, and tourist importance, meeting local artists and craftsmen, and visits higher educational institutions in their village, tehsil, district, and state. Students will be taught at a young age the importance of doing what's right and given a logical framework for making ethical decisions. So parents, hereafter, when we punish your child, call up your child, please don't come to school and say, "Chhod do, bachcha hai, seekh jayega." Don't take up for your children. You can see I'm smiling, I'm beaming. I said this was an excellent document. Very, very well thought, very comprehensive. Children have to learn from their mistakes. Greater learning takes place when you are held accountable and responsible for your actions. Traditional Indian values and basic human and constitutional values will be developed in all students. Constitutional values, freedom of speech. We very recently did it. I was very, very proud of Reva Bharadwaj, who wrote a beautiful poem on dissent. What is happening in our country just now? We need to open this dialogue with children, to talk to them about it, to understand what they feel. And so I shared an article written by P. Chidambaram on dissent. And then she came up with this beautiful poem, which I posted in the school Facebook page. And parents, please look at what is happening in school. With school closed for this entire academic year, there is so much that we put on the Facebook page so that you can see what the school has been doing, what the teachers have been doing. And yet, very, very few parents. And mind you, those parents are very repetitive parents who always write in something beautiful, encouraging. But they're just those few parents, those handful of parents. And then it was very, very comforting and a big surprise when I saw Dr. Rahul Netradarkar's little comment that he wrote for Reva Bharadwaj. That is an ex-parent of the school. So what is surprising is that ex-parents and outsiders are interested and our own parents aren't. Please be interested in what is happening in the school. So traditional Indian values and basic human and constitutional values. We are one. Unity in diversity. Freedom of speech. Very often in school, in class, I throw out, all right, meat eaters, raise your hand. It is a constitutional right that I can eat, dress, pray to whomsoever I want. Nobody can take away that from me. All curriculum and pedagogy from the foundational stage onwards will be redesigned to be strongly rooted in the Indian and local context and ethos in terms of culture, traditions, heritage, customs, language, philosophy, geography, ancient and contemporary knowledge, societal and scientific needs, indigenous and traditional ways of learning. Beautiful. There is so much that India has to offer, so much. transforming assessment for students' development. So assessment, marks, examinations, and when they don't score, immediately write them off saying they're not good, they're failures. The aim of assessment will shift from one that is summative and primarily tests rote memorization skills to one that is more regular and formative, is more competency-based, promotes learning and development for our students, and tests higher order skills such as analysis, critical thinking, and conceptual clarity. The board exams for grades 10 and 12 will continue. There is no change, but there is a surprise. There is a little bit of a caveat attached, which is students will be able to choose many of the subjects in which they take board exams depending on their individualized interests, and all students will be allowed to take board exams on up to 2 occasions, one main examination and one for improvement if desired. So that's something very, very interesting. All students will take a school examination in grades 3, 5, and 8. Now, this does not mean parents that in standard 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, there will be no examinations. There will be, but these will be like a semi-board examination. This will be the line where we decide, are they ready to step into middle school, into the next stage. So foundation, preparatory, middle school. And now parents, we come to the core, teacher. Like I said in the key principles, teachers are at the heart of this entire education policy. Teachers truly shape the future of our children and therefore the future of our nation. The quality of teacher education will be to motivate and empower teachers, thus ensuring the best possible future for our children and our nation. Teacher eligibility tests will be strengthened. Sharing of teachers across schools. We will come to this point a little later so that you understand what this means. School complexes will be encouraged to hire local eminent persons or experts. Year before last, or 3 years ago, we had Professor Surendra Kaskar, an eminent person, come to talk about Hydra. So we can hire people, although he came gratis because he's a very dear friend. We can have people come to school and talk to the children. And that is one of the reasons why we have that huge new building coming up, which is going to be the AV room on top for guests, movies, documentaries to be screened, and at the bottom, ground level is going to be the library. Teachers will be given continuous opportunities for self-improvement and to learn the latest innovations and advances in their professions. Each teacher will be expected to participate in at least 50 hours of CPD opportunities every year for their professional development. We will come to this also. School principals and school complex leaders will have similar modular leadership management workshops. Special educators for children with disabilities, Vidya, at the middle and secondary school level. Now, parents, this previous slide that you saw is all about teacher training. A lot of emphasis is being laid on teacher training, and this part of the NEP has already started in earnest. The CBSE is ensuring that its teachers are being trained thoroughly for this new education policy that is going to, already has been put into place, but in the new academic year, a lot of it is going to see the light of day. Now, continuous professional development. That is what CPD stands for. And this is also not only something that the board stresses on, but even as a teacher, I should myself go for courses to update myself so that I keep in touch and abreast with all the changes that are happening. You can read this, parents. Very, very nice. We put together by Vishal sir. Teacher education to include aspects of supporting gifted children. Gifted? Prodigies. Children who are at the age of 7 can do mathematical sums that probably a graduate does. A child who's 7 or 8 years old who can play a musical instrument, flawless classical music. Those are called gifted children. Children who are very good with languages and can speak more than 3, 4 languages fluently. Workshops and training programs for development of school leaders and principals. Like I mentioned, Reena ma'am and myself have been to a number of them, and this is important because the board will keep guiding us, and then we come back to our schools and see in what direction is the school to go. 21st century teaching, learning, and assessment will be at the heart of all teacher training programs. Anganwadi workers, teachers trained in early literacy, numeracy, and other relevant aspects of ECCE. Inclusion and equity will become a key aspect of teacher education, and secondary specializations to be created for teaching kids with disabilities. A new and comprehensive national curriculum framework for teacher education, NCFTE 2021, will be formulated. National Professional Teacher Standard, NPST, to set benchmark for expectations of the role of teachers, standards of performance appraisals, and inform the design of pre-service education. So teachers are going to be trained and empowered through their training. Previously, you just did a BA, and that was the end of the story. You have that one qualification, and that was the end. Now you're going to be trained every year. Every year. This is another very, very big change. Training teachers to be effective online educators. I think, thanks to Vishal sir and Savita ma'am, the teachers of St. Michael's did very well. I was, and I am very, very proud of the way they reinvented themselves, but that is because of the good training that we were given. Throughout COVID, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, leading up to now, Vishal sir and Savita ma'am have been training us. So thanks to them, we are effective online educators. Equitable and inclusive education, which in short means learning for all. Education is the single greatest tool for achieving social justice and equality. And I cannot but think of Dr. Ambedkar. Born a Dalit, it was his education that catapulted him to what he was, a man who is venerated as God. But that should not happen, of course, but it was his education. NEP seeks to bridge gender and social category gaps in all levels of school education. So children who come from economically backward or economically backward homes, financial problems, transgenders, caste, so much of all of that. The NEP, the National Education Policy, is going to bridge that gap because learning is for all. A gender inclusion fund to provide equitable quality education for all girls, transgender students. And a little signature of Vishal sir. I was pleasantly surprised when he put a quote by Desmond Tutu. He is a bishop in Africa. He's an African bishop of Christian church. And he didn't do that because I'm a Christian. He just did it because Desmond Tutu is also a very wise, very wise, forward-thinking, lesson leader. Inclusive, good quality education is the foundation for dynamic and equitable societies. Efficient resourcing. Efficient resourcing will ensure adequate number of counselors, trained social workers, and teachers, share or otherwise for teaching all subjects, including art, music, science, sports, languages, vocational subjects, etc. Now, resourcing, sharing. We talked about this earlier, it's come up again. What are we talking about? Now, our school is in Narayangaon village. Not in the villages itself, but on the outskirts. They do have two schools in that village. If they require a sports teacher and they approach me, I will share my resource with them. If I have an auditorium, which I don't, but I have a stage, and if they would like to come and stage with me because they don't have place or an area, I will allow them to do it. If they want to have their sports day and they don't have a playground, I will give them my ground. So this is for shared resources in terms of infrastructure as well as teachers, counselors, and specially trained teachers for children with physical disabilities, special children. Adequate resources such as library, science labs, computer labs, skill labs, playgrounds, sports equipment, and facilities. So I just explained that. Efficient resourcing will ensure a sense of community is built to overcome the isolation of teachers, students, and schools through joint professional development programs, sharing of teaching, learning content, joint content development, holding joint activities such as art and science exhibitions, sports meets, quizzes and debates, and fairs. So collaboration, joint ventures is what we are now going to look at and encourage. Effective governance through school complexes and clusters. So just as we are going to pool in our resources, so also school complexes and clusters are going to be made. In fact, they already have been formulated and established. The establishment of grouping structure for the school complex, consisting of one secondary school, including Anganwadi in a radius of 5 to 10 kilometers. So, together, we're going to work together. The aim of the school complex cluster will be greater resource efficiency and more effective functioning, coordination, leadership, governance, and management of schools in the cluster. So just now we have the hub of learning hall, of which Mrs. Nondita Mishra is the head. We also have the Ahmed Nagar CBSE cluster, which is headed by Mrs. Jayashree Maitre, the principal of Takshashila School. So two have already been formed, and very recently we've got the Soyodhya complex, 3 clusters of schools coming together, and the Soyodhya, which is still not being named, hopefully it will be named Christian, as I call it, on the 25th. The Namkaran. Vishal, am I right? Bilingual parents. Christening is in the English language and Namkaran is how you say it. So, is headed by Mrs. Aradhana Rana, the principal of Icon Public School. The school complex will act as semi-autonomous units. So a lot of the rules that we make, we will govern ourselves, keeping in mind the locality, the area, the city that we come from. CBSE schools in Pune, Nasik are very different from CBSE schools that we have here in Ahmednagar. So therefore, semi-autonomous. So CBSE sitting in Delhi cannot have carte blanche rules for all of us. We will have to make our way, make our own rules, going along with what we have, the resources we have, the infrastructure that we have, the kind of children that are coming to us, taking into consideration all of that. Now, the district education officer, the DEO, and the block education officers, the BEO, will interact with each school complex cluster as a single unit and facilitate its work. I am specifying they will help facilitate in their work and not prove to be a hurdle, not archan, or lack of a Hindi word. That is not the job of the district education officer, the block education officer. They are to help, to facilitate, and not put archan in our way. And for all of you who know what I'm talking about, this is what happened last year in July, August, September, June, July, August, actually. Standard setting and accreditation for school education. So in short, the goal of the school education regulatory system must be to continually improve educational outcomes. Standards have to be set, have to be met, and they have to be revised and regulated from time to time. Regulation must aim to empower schools and teachers, enabling them to strive for excellence and perform at their very best, while ensuring the integrity of the system through the enforcement of complete transparency and full public disclosure of all finances, procedures, and educational outcomes. Dear parents, I would like to, very recently, I had a bit of an experience. I had Ruth Dear Khandelwal, he's in Standard 9, his father, Mr. Khandelwal, I'm sorry, I don't know what his first name is. Mr. Khandelwal, could you help me out, Vishal sir? Mr. Khandelwal from INSRD, his first name? Or never mind. Mr. Khandelwal paid me the highest compliment ever that I had received. As he was leaving my office, he said, "Ma'am, I have to say and share one thing with you. When you started St. Michael's, and in the years that have followed, you have revolutionized the CBSE education. And today, reading these last 10 days, this entire manual, this entire manual, all I can say is I have been on the right path and doing the right thing by children and by parents, and of course by my teachers." Talking about transparency, very recently we had a committee set up for fee regulation. We have to, every 2 years, we revise the fee structure of the school. And there were 3 parents. Mr. Kataria, I'm sorry, I don't know what his first name is, Shreya Kataria, Standard 8, her father, a couple of other parents who said, never before has any school that we know of called parents to be a part of this. And I said, this has always been a practice of our school. And they said, "Ma'am, how come we did not know of it?" To ensure that all schools follow certain minimum professional and quality standards, states, UTs, Union Territories, will set up an independent statewide body called the State School Standards Authority, SSSA. The SSSA will establish a minimal set of standards based on basic parameters, namely safety, security, basic infrastructure, number of teachers across subjects and grades, financial probability, and sound processes of governance, which shall be followed by all schools. Nowhere in this entire manual did I come across strength of students in any one class. I wish they had also specified that. Ideally, I would like class 30 children. 34 for all those in the government service who have transferred jobs. So I wish in all of this they had also put strength as a directive that we cannot exceed that many. But I guess more teachers will be joining, hopefully. Since the NEP has put the focus back on teachers, it's back a noble profession. For the longest time it wasn't. And I think teachers across the world have outdone themselves. They have gone beyond their call duty during this COVID times to ensure that their students and the children, school-going children, are keeping in touch with their studies. And so I hope more people join this noble profession, and therefore we can have more classes. In a nutshell, we come to the end, parents. Take a deep breath. I know it's been rather exhaustive. I started saying it's a very exhaustive and a very comprehensive manual. In a nutshell, the 5 pillars of NEP: access, equity, affordability, accountability, quality. On these 5 pillars rests this entire national education policy 2020. Now, parents, I have finished with the PPT, but I would like to share something with you. I've titled it The Firsts. Please don't get me wrong. This is not arrogance. This is not, I did it first, so I am number one. You are the stakeholders of the school, and therefore you should know about the school, the ethos of the school, the vision of the school. Because I noticed at the time of admission, we give you that white little jacket kind of a thing where we slip in 3 sheets of paper, and nobody really looks at that. Nobody really reads that. The word holistic, the word pride in our culture, in our heritage, knowledge that empowers, unique, all these words are there in the folder, very much there. And this was put together almost 70 years ago when I started this. So as firsts, physically challenged and special children, we have had a few have left us. I remember our first child was a 17-year-old boy, a young man who was admitted to standard 1. He was so severely handicapped. He was climbing a kite when he was young and fell off the roof of his building and hit his head. We had him for about 2 years, but we had to ask his parents to take him out. It was very sad, it broke my heart. But he was a very, very, very big boy. And he was getting very physical with the little children, beating them up, pushing them, and hurting them and doing them bodily harm. And since we didn't have a special educator, I could do just that much and no more. So we've always encouraged, welcomed, made the best that we can with our limited resources to make these children feel a part of our school, mainstream schooling and learning. Never once have we made them feel different. Not only that, it's been a great learning for the able-bodied children to be compassionate, to be kind, to be gentle, and at the end of the day, to feel grateful that they are able-bodied. Transgender, 5 or 6 years ago, I redid the admission form and I put this word in. I remember there was a lot of curiosity, including one of the parents saying, "Oh man, you mean chakka, wo chakke hote hain?" And I said, "Oh dear, oh dear. How sad, how offensive is that word, chakka." Experiential learning is something we have been doing all of them. Not only do the children enjoy it, it's fun, it's great. Teachers, it takes away from the monotony of just doing blackboard work and checking copies. This is great. Sharing resources is something we have done. We have shared books, we have shared costumes with schools that are not so well off. Very, very recently, on the 19th to be exact of February, we were at Barbara. And I gave a whole box of jewelry that we had collected to the school for their drama and for their plays. and the nuns were very, very happy and delighted. Community development, Seva as they call it now. We had done street plays, the farmers' exhibition, grandparents' day. Awareness, save water, we had a flash dance, cleaning a water body, and then going and talking to the people around in Darewari, telling them how important it is to keep that water body clean, to keep their surrounding clean, and we haven't done it once, we have done it on 3 occasions in Darewari village. We are not a marks-oriented school. I have said tuitions. At the time of the orientation, I have said over and over again, please don't allow your children to go for tuitions. Music and drama and reading and creativity is encouraged all the time. Our fees are affordable. I could have easily, in all these years, hiked up the fees and made our school into an elitist school. Just by having this fanciful fee structure. So that parents could say, oh, my child goes to St. Michael's, because then people know how wealthy that parent is. Before RTE, before the right to education, we were already giving free education to a few, I would say, a lot many, but a few children. It is my heart's desire to ensure that we educate at least one child free of cost throughout his schooling years, her schooling years in St. Michael's. The creative potential of a child is encouraged. Look at the farewell party and all the decorations that we took. The Teachers' Day celebrations that the children put up. Exhibition, the ideas that children come up with. All this, we ask them to give us ideas. Year before last, the exhibition that we had on 15th of August. All those ideas, yes, the skeleton is what the teachers give, and the rest, the children, once they get the hang of it and understand it, how they put it all together. Values, integrity and ethics is something that is very, very close to my heart. You have to be an honest person. No compromises on that. Leadership qualities through our office bearers, through our captains. How often do they sit with me and teachers, deciding on key issues? Hobbies are encouraged. Children must have a hobby. Mano Darpan, just yesterday, we attended a webinar that the CBSE had put out called Mano Darpan. Ghar Se Charcha, way back when in the height of the pandemic, if I'm not mistaken, July, August, we had this Ghar Se Charcha asking children, are you okay? Is there anything that you would like to share with us? Please do so. We will counsel you and guide you. And we did. A fair amount of children who were upset and feeling lost, depressed. Charity. As you enter the school portal, you've got Aristotle's famous words. Charity. You must have a generous heart and give. You must feel empathy for fellow human beings who are suffering. Sports, of course, is something, again, very, very close to my heart. But there has to also be discipline in sports. Every parent wants to see their child part of a team, and yet, poor Bata Sir, bless his soul, he would say, man, we just have come for practice. And at the last minute, parents will come and say, mere bachche ko team mein kyun nahi? And then unfortunately, none of the man has to step in. Field trips, just not any field trips, but field trips to showcase the culture and the heritage of India. We have been to Pedagogical, we have been to Man, we've been to Gwalior, we have been to Goa. Field trips are very, very important. National pride. Very recently on 26th of January, we celebrated Veterans Day. Our 15th of August program always has a theme, beautiful theme running through it. Teacher training. Much before the CBSE laid emphasis on teacher training, we did boxer. That was one of our biggest trainings. Small in-house trainings we have done, so many of that I have lost count. So parents, the reason why I have read out these firsts to you is because all that we have been doing in the last 15 years, now 16, is what the NEP is talking about. All of this is where we are leading your children to be compassionate, intelligent, problem-solving, critical, analytical, global citizens. So I think I can give myself, if I might have a pat on my back and say, we're doing a good, thorough job by the children that you have entrusted in our care. And lastly, I wish this meeting had been face-to-face, like one of our PT meetings, parent-teacher meetings in school. However, this is the best that Vishal sir, Sandhya ma'am, and myself could put together for you. Please do leave your comments. Please leave any queries that you have at the bottom of this brief meeting that we've had, and I will definitely go through them and get back to you when I can. So thank you very, very much, parents. This was the National Education Policy rolled out by the government.